As Americans, we've always been proud of our ability to draw bounty from the earth. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Join me as we celebrate all the great things Mother Nature provides. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. You know, since the founding of this country, farming has played an essential role in the country's vitality. So in today's show, I thought it would be interesting to explore some of our most popular crops. For instance, garlic. It's really fascinating. I want to show you how you can take a clove of garlic like this and produce lots of wonderful garlic bulbs. We'll visit the Christopher Ranch in Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of the United States, and see how garlic is produced on a colossal scale. And we'll take a look at the difference between brown and white rice and what goes into the process of growing it. I also want to share with you one of my favorite garlic recipes called mushroom saute, and I guarantee you'll have guests coming back asking for more. Then I want to take you out into the garden and show you how you can take stem cuttings from some of your favorite plants. And I'll share with you a secret about how to make those root much faster. All right, first on the list is the Christopher Ranch in California. That's coming up next. If you've ever wondered how it all begins for one of America's favorite seasonings, the folks at Christopher Ranch in California will show us how. Ask any chef, or for that matter, anyone who enjoys cooking, and more often than not, they'll tell you if they only had one herb to choose from to cook with, it would be garlic. Now, what's interesting about this curious little bulb is that we've been consuming it for literally thousands of years, both as a way to flavor our food and as a form of medicine. As they say, this plant is both good and good for you. Another interesting thing about it is that 90% of the garlic consumed in this country actually comes from California. Don Christopher, president and founder of Christopher's Garlic Ranch, is one of the largest producers in the state. When he started in 1956, he planted just 10 acres of garlic, and now that's up to 6,500.
This field was planted about November the 1st, and we planted about 1,200 pounds of cloves to the acre, and when it produces about 12 times what we plant, and therefore we get around 15,000 pounds per acre in return. And we're farming right now, I think, a total of almost 5,000 acres of garlic. It does, a lot of it's growing in the wintertime. It sets the root system mostly. And then as the garlic gets bigger, that's when it starts forming its cloves, and we make a bulb. If we don't have warm weather, we won't have good garlic. The garlic wants sunshine all the time. So if you plant garlic underneath a tree, you won't have much more than a little tiny bulb. But if you get it out where the sun hits it for the 12 hours a day, you'll have a beautiful crop. And that's why people in the home, they should plant it in a pot or something where the sun hits it all the time. No shade. We do all kinds of things with the garlic. We puree it and put it in a jar, and it'll hold for 2 or 3 years. So we do everything we can with the garlic to make it sellable. Garlic is coming in all different ways now, with the roasted garlic, the dehydrated garlic, the fresh cloves. Everything is making a big difference in our business. Not only that, garlic is good for you, and the health aspect is great, and it's helping the sale of garlic. Also, we're getting promotion through all the books. People are writing more recipes. There's just more and more taking place. I'm eating the roasted garlic now because I really do like it. It lowers your cholesterol. It thins your blood out so you don't have heart attacks as much, and it just makes you feel better. And that's what's really helping us, is people feel better eating garlic, and of course the flavor is outstanding. We're going to harvest this crop latter part of June and first part of July. And so our garlic will be ready for the Garlic Festival, which is the last weekend in July, and we'll show our products there. And of course the Garlic Festival just promotes garlic all over the place. We love it, I got to tell you. We started the Garlic Festival 25 years ago. We're going to celebrate our 26th anniversary this year, and we're all excited about it.
As Americans continue to discover the great flavor and health benefits of garlic, no doubt production of this versatile and ancient herb will continue to grow. Did you know that the color of rice plays a role in its nutritional value? I'll fill you in on the details when we come back. Okay, so which do you prefer, brown or white rice? You may change your mind about your color preference after this little tidbit of information. If you're like me, you find the history of virtually everything intriguing, even down to the foods we eat. Take rice, for instance. It's been sustaining us for over 5,000 years, and it has a fascinating history. Today, this grain is a primary food source for more than 2/3 of the world's population. You know, the history of rice farming in this country goes way back to 1720, when a ship sailing to Madagascar was blown off course because of a storm, and they had to take refuge in the port of Charleston, South Carolina, where the ship's captain gave a local farmer some rice grains to start, and that's where it all began. But the rice of today isn't the rice of our forefathers. You see, most of the rice consumed in the United States is white rice, which is enriched, meaning other nutrients such as thiamine and iron are added. While white rice may be more popular, personally, I prefer brown rice. You see, it isn't enriched. It doesn't have to be. It's already full of all those good things for us, like vitamin E, phosphorus, calcium, and slightly more fiber than regular white rice. Now let's take a look at how the production of rice played a role in creating America's oldest landscape garden. Since growing rice requires a lot of water and a soil to retain it, as well as open expanses like this, its production is limited to only certain parts of the country. This field was planted last April, but before it was seeded, low levees of soil were created to hold the water. To give you an idea of just how much water it requires, for an 80-acre tract, it usually takes a well that can produce between 12 and 1,700 gallons of water per minute. Flooding the fields occurs as soon as the rice seedlings are about 4 to 6 inches tall, and the water is maintained until just before the grain is mature. Then the fields are drained and allowed to dry before the harvest. Rice is a healthy food containing no fat, cholesterol, or sodium. It's an ancient cereal grain that continues to feed over 2/3 of the world's population. Middleton Place in Charleston, South Carolina is best known for being the oldest landscape garden in America. But rice certainly played an important role here in the history of this plantation. Randy Money took me on a carriage ride and told me the story.
Alan, while you're here at Middleton Place, I definitely wanted to bring you down and let you see the flooded rice fields off to my left here.
And the product that came out of that is what made that garden possible.
Absolutely, Carolina Gold.
Yeah.
Carolina Gold, brought in from Madagascar. The various stories about how the rice got here. One was that a ship's captain by the name of Captain John Thorogood actually brought it in here in the late 1600s, and the other story is that there was a ship that limped into the harbor, and either way, the rice got off the boat, and the amount of work that went into the building of these rice plantations, absolutely, truly amazing at the manpower that went in. Before they could even start the rice fields, they had to drain the swamps, clear the cypress, clear the stumps, clear the brush, all before the first crop ever went in.
Sure, all by slave labor.
All by labor, all by slave labor, exactly. The enslaved Africans who worked here on the plantations in South Carolina, they had been growing rice literally for decades on the Ivory Coast of Africa, and so they had the knowledge that it took to raise this rice.
Of course, the production of rice goes from spring to fall. Exactly. So in the off season, did the slaves work on the garden?
Actually, they did. They did a lot of work on the gardens, as a matter of fact. The terraces of Middleton Place there, 35 feet above sea level, one of the highest points in Dorchester County, was hand-built. It was cut out of a bluff up there.
Really?
Took approximately 100 slaves 10 years to build the terraces of Middleton Place.
After the Civil War, the garden really fell into disrepair.
It actually did. A faction of the Union troops from Sherman's army, the march from Atlanta to Savannah, of course, came through Middleton Place and destroyed Middleton Place. The houses were destroyed, the formal gardens were actually burned, all the way up until actually the 1920s. And in the 1920s, one of the direct descendants of the Middleton family, a gentleman by the name of J.J. Pringle Smith, inherited Middleton Place. And it was through his work and his dedication that the formal gardens are what they are today.
So what the visitor sees today is really the work of J.J. Pringle Smith and his wife.
Absolutely, the resurrection of Middleton Place gardens through him.
Randy, thank you so much for bringing me down here and allowing me to see Middleton Place from this vantage point.
Alan, is my pleasure.
Next up, I can't wait to share with you a way to make more of your favorite plants, including a time-honored recipe for making them root much faster. So don't go away. In today's show, we're focusing on all of the bounty our great country produces. And of course, food naturally comes to mind. The farms of our nation fill our tables with fruit, grains, and vegetables. In our home gardens, we're also reaping the bounty. And it isn't just about food. As you can see from all of the plants I'm drying here in my workshop, that I take full advantage of a bountiful garden. This time of year, I love to collect hydrangeas, sunflowers, artemisia, a whole range of everlastings, and use them in arrangements for the fall and winter. It's a great way to bring a little color to the house. You know, another great thing about so many of these plants is that they're wildflowers, and they grow so abundantly along roadsides and in meadows. Seeing a landscape full of wildflowers really does embody this idea of America the Bountiful. It's astonishing the number of wildflower species that grow across this country. Every region seems to have its favorites, like the bluebonnets of Texas and all of those California poppies. And in the northeast and north central parts of this country alone, there are over 1,200 species. Many of these varieties are at their best or showiest in the spring and summer. But one of the best times to sow the seed is actually during the late summer and early fall. If you plant during this period, you want to make sure that your plants have enough time to germinate and establish themselves before the first hard frost. That's usually about 8 weeks. And you want to make sure that there's plenty of moisture in the soil during this time. If you don't have time to plant them this fall, you can plant them in the very early spring. Getting them in the ground is a snap. Just break up the soil in your garden down to about 3 inches. This will ensure good seed to soil contact. If you're working with a larger area, a rototiller can make this job a lot easier. Many wildflower seeds are very tiny, so to get even distribution when sowing, it's a good idea to mix the seed with an inert material like dry sand. And I don't advise using fertilizer because this seems to just encourage weeds. One last thing. If you use one of these wildflower seed mixes, you'll find that they contain both annuals and perennials. The annuals will bloom this spring, but many of the perennials will take 2 years to flower, so you have to be patient. I have to tell you, this little technique of using some sand along with your wildflower seed really does work. You know, I have vivid memories of my grandparents' garden and front porch because they had so many wonderful and interesting plants on that porch. My grandmother used to tell me that most of those plants had either been given to her by family or friends. She called them pass-along plants. And she started them all with cuttings. And it's really quite a simple process. And you can make cuttings from so many of our favorite garden plants. All you do is take a cutting from a plant that's about 4 to 5 inches long. Remove the lower leaves, but keep some at the top. Then place the cutting in water. Now I like to use a ceramic container rather than a clear glass container because the lack of light helps to promote more root growth. Now if you really want to stimulate, even accelerate root development, you can do this by using an old-fashioned solution called willow water. Willow trees are some of the easiest plants to root because of a natural hormone found in them. And studies have shown that this same hormone, when used in a solution on other plants, also promotes root growth. To mix up a batch of willow water, simply cut a few branches from a willow tree, about the size of a pencil, making sure the branches are green and supple. Then cut the branches into 1-inch pieces and smash with a hammer. Next, bring a pot of water to a boil. Drop the willow into the water and remove from the heat. Allow the mixture to steep, stirring occasionally. Once cool, the mixture is ready to use. In addition to using willow water for rooting cuttings, you can also pour it around young transplants to help accelerate their root development. Now, not every plant is suitable for making cuttings this way, but some of my favorites include this old-fashioned chicken gizzard, ornamental sweet potato vine, coleus, and of course the wandering Jew. Some people might see this as one hanging basket, but I see it as potentially 20. You see, there are hundreds of cuttings just waiting to be made from that single basket. If you're looking for a way to increase the number of plants in your garden this summer, you might try just rooting some in water. Coming up next, I've got a great way to make good use of all that garlic we saw at the Christopher Garlic Ranch. I have a recipe you'll love, and I'll share it with you when we come back, so stay with us. This is a really simple garlic recipe that's always popular around my house. Start with about 10 to 12 medium-sized caps. To prepare the sauté, just melt about 2 tablespoons of butter in a large saucepan, and then add a couple of tablespoons of chopped onions and a clove or 2 of crushed garlic. Stir over medium heat until the onions are transparent. Now I'm ready for the mushrooms. I've rinsed them, and I'll add them whole to the sauté, along with about a teaspoon of soy sauce. Then I'll cover them for about 2 minutes until they're wilted. At this stage, the aroma is unbelievable. Now just remember, these will cook in no time, so be careful not to overcook them. You know, there is so much bounty in this country. Everything from all those gorgeous wildflowers we see blooming so effortlessly along roadsides and meadows, to all the produce we can produce in our own backyards, right down to these marvelous peaches that are so tasty this time of year. You know, if you love good recipes, I invite you to check out my website. That's pallensmith.com, and let me know what you think. From the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.